live. Do that for Jan. All right, call to order, please. Oh, we don't have. Yeah, we should have a pledge of allegiance. It's not on here. Please, everyone, would you all stand, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everybody. Roll call, please.
Director Asner. Director Byers. Director Faulkner.
Here.
Great. Director Hudson. Director Mueller.
Present.
Vice President Petroff. Here. President Cuneo.
Here. All right, let's start with the joint resolution.
All right, we're pleased to announce that we have two joint resolutions that will be coming forward tonight for the board for the special meeting. The first one is going to be the SEEA, which is the Special Education Paraprofessional Unit. Chief Sector and Director Dan Kelly will be presenting tonight.
We have a meeting for Vicki, so let's tell her to come on in.
Okay.
Good evening, President Cuneo, Directors, Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Keenan, my Director of Human Resources, Vicki Hayes, SEEA President, will be coming in shortly. So we'll kind of let her introduce herself when she gets here as well. So I'm here to talk to you a little bit about our SEEA agreement reached between the district and SEEA. So on my bargaining team, we had Elizabeth Kenner. Elizabeth is a Special Ed Coordinator in Early Childhood. Dr. Kelly Grigsby, Executive Director of Schools. Lynn Sapley, HR Manager. Representing SEEA was Haynes, Michael Selby, Linda Jackson, Andrea Nichols, Sharon Foote, along with Madeline Colas as well. So this process was kind of utilizing the interest-based bargaining process. So we kind of identified issues and then worked collaboratively to solve those issues. So some language updates. We addressed Article 9, which is due process, which allowed SEEA increased representation at a due process hearing. Article 11, dealing with employee evaluation. Really what that did is just shifted the supervising administrator to the teacher, or from the teacher to the administrator, excuse me.
I guess we're right.
Yeah. Article 13, which was the voluntary transfer fare. It was an opportunity to increase the window for our paras to transfer, but also, along with the window, also increase the number of positions that were available for our current employees to transfer into. We also addressed Article 15. Article 15 deals with holidays and the school calendar. So what we did is we increased it up to 4 days that staff could use for emergency closure. Snow days, pipe bursts, something like that. We also aligned our para workdays to be more closely connected to our teacher workdays so that we can increase the number of days that the paras were there to not only support our teachers, but also to learn collaboratively with them in professional development. Article 22 deals specifically with association leave. So what we did in that article is we increased the amount of time available to Vicki as the SEEA president to be available for her members, to get out into the larger community, to meet and kind of help foster a collaborative environment to kind of resolve issues at the local level. It also starts bringing more alignment with what is also afforded to our teachers on their representation as well. Article 23 dealt with insurance and fringe benefits. Really what that does is just provided our employee benefits to start on day one. So we have updated that language as well. Article 24, which is titled Payment, we increased our sub-coverage from $42 to $50, while at the same time increasing opportunities to provide our paras compensation for the work that they're doing when they're subbing in the role of the teacher. Whether the teacher's out for the day, or meetings, IEP meetings, whatnot. Article 25, extended school year. We kind of just clarified or tweaked the language of how we assign staff for ESY, while at the same time increasing the rates for ESY from $16 to $20 an hour for our paraprofessionals and our occupational therapy assistants and our physical therapy assistants from $25 to $27. To try to remain competitive and attract more staff to fill our summer school vacancies. Article 32 looks at our duration. Our duration is really a 2-year agreement running from July of 2021 to June 30th, 2023. For our salary agreement in year 1, step movement for all of our employees, adjusted step movement for identified employee groups, money on the top step, overall 3.74 increase to forecasted expenditures for a total of $56,037,284. Year 2 of the agreement, again, step movement for all of our employees, adjusted step movement for those identified through the negotiation process. Again, money on the top step. This one came in at a 4.22% increase to forecasted expenditures for a total of $58,402,884.
Good evening. President O'Neill, SSD Board of Education. My name is Dr. Keenan. My name is Vicki Haynes. I am the SEEA President for the Paras Union. And the slides I want to speak on tonight, we're pretty much reiterating what Dan had already spoke with you all about. We took focus to our employee evaluation, where we are pleased that our supervisors now are the ones that will be conducting the evaluations, as that has been an issue for us for a little while, and that the teachers would provide their input. Also, Article 22, Association Leave, I am indeed thankful and grateful for this consideration by the district to allow me more time to get out and to do more services with the MNEA and SEEA for our staff members, so that we can provide the support that the staff members need going forward. Article 24, this is a big plus for paras because we have wanted promotion and a raise and increase in the salary for quite some time now. So our members were well pleased to hear that it had been raised from $42 an hour to $50 an hour. So thank you. As well as Article 25, the extended school year. The rate went from $16, as Dan said, to $20 an hour. This is very important too, because we have a lot of paraprofessionals that do work other jobs, and in the summer, it's always competitive whether or not they'll decide to do ESY or they'll work the other regular summer jobs. Many of them would like to stick with working just for SSD, but it had been an issue in the past with the rate being lower than $20. So that $20 really makes a difference to a lot of people as well as for the COVID and PTA for $27. One of the greatest, we overall got a really good negotiation year this year. We're very thankful. One of the things that was really exciting for most of our members were the 204 people we were able to identify who have been frozen on steps. So the adjusted step movement really makes a difference in the spending in pockets of a lot of people with the income that they'll be bringing in now. So we were, and that's for 2 years, or both years. We were also equally pleased with our 4.22% raise front loading next year for us to get more money on the bottom step, as well as money on the top step for those of us that are on step 17 with nowhere else, no other steps to go after that. So overall, SEEA is pleased with this, our new joint resolution and our salaries. Thank you.
Thank you.
What questions might you guys?
For getting this done on both sides.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having it 2 years.
Thank you.
Thank you for working together.
Absolutely.
The next presentation will be on the SDNEA, and we also have our SDNEA President, Monica Jefferson, and they will co-present the information to tonight's meeting.
Good evening, Dr. Cuneo, President Cuneo, Vice President Pothoff, and Board Director, Dr. Keenan. I'm Amy Schechter, the Chief Human Resources Officer, and I'm joined this evening by Monica Jefferson, who is outgoing President of the Professional District in EA. So we are going to walk through the joint resolution. That's a 2-year agreement that we have before you for a vote this evening. I'll start by introducing the bargaining team of representatives. I served as the lead. I was joined by Dan Kelly, the Director of Human Resources, Kevin Anders, the Executive Director of Career Education, Randy Pendergrass, the Chief Academic Officer, Chiquita McRiddle, the Executive Director of Partner District, and Brian O'Connor, the Principal at University High School.
All right. Our representatives were Tammy McGrellis, who's going to be the new president of Special District anyway. Can you all understand him? Okay. I was on the team. Paul Kaufman, who is a teacher in Parkway. Jennifer Stanfield, a teacher in at New Owner. Patricia Taylor, a teacher in Jennings. Demetria Russell, counselor at North County Tech. Christina Finazzo, an SLP in Pattonville, and Madeline Polas, our UNICEF director from Missouri NEA.
So the next slide, as Dan mentioned in his presentation, we participated in interest-based bargaining, which is often referred to as IDB, where that process is different in that the teams get together and they talk about issues that they are either each team is having or that both teams collectively have. And then there's collaborative work to resolve those issues. If that resolution involves changing language on any of the articles in the joint resolution, that is done after the issue is resolved. So we worked through that process February through May. We had 14 separate sessions, some longer than others, and we were facilitated through that with by a mediator from the Federal Mediation and Conciliation Services, Bill Reed, who participated in each of those meetings. Next slide. Move into some of the language updates.
Okay, for Article 5, Rights of the Association, we decided that we would get together annually to discuss the projected versus actual expenditures for SDNEA salaries. And that will be with SSD leadership and SDNEA leadership and representatives. The reason that we requested this was because there have been some years where there's been an amount that's budgeted, but it's come under with actual spending. So we like to come together to try to address the breakage, hopefully in ways to eliminate it moving forward.
And our next article that has some updates is Article 12, Conditions and Hours of Work. There's several sections in this article, the first being the plan time section. And so we changed the language in that to allow for 2/3 of the 250 minutes to be teacher self-directed plan time. We also added language that addressed diagnostic time. So we have several of our related service staff that are responsible for diagnostic testing, specifically speech language pathologists, but other related service staff as well. And so this language would allow them 90 minutes per week in their weekly schedule to be solely devoted to that diagnostic time, so they're not forced to give up plan time and other types of time during the day to do that diagnostic testing, which is a part of the job. And then in looking at the work week language, we really fine-tuned that and gave some more specific examples of what actually counts towards the 37.5 hours, and that would include both staff and community.
All right. Article 13 really is just school calendar and holidays. We agreed to reduce the work days from 192 days a year down to 190. And the other change was just there was an omission in the previous JR, and these holidays were inadvertently left out. So they're just back in. The paid holidays for President's Day, Independence Day, and non-Memorial Day.
Looking at Article 15, our workload standards, we addressed some hourly rate increases. I know that Dan mentioned that they looked at increasing some rates of pay outside of just salary. We did the same thing. So the first area in Article 15 that we addressed is when our teachers give up their plan time in order to sub for an absent teacher. Previously, they were paid $23 an hour for that work, and we've increased that to $28 an hour. And then in looking at additional case management, so there are times that our staff are responsible, or our teacher-level staff are responsible for taking on additional IEPs and reevaluation paperwork in the event of a vacancy or a staff member that may be on a leave of absence. And so we have increased that to $32 an hour. And then also our related service staff that have to take over the Medicaid billing process for absent, for leave of absences or for vacancies. We've also increased that to the $32 an hour, and that was previously at $29 an hour rate.
Article 16 deals with salaries and salary payments. We had a BS plus 20 channel. It's been changed to a BS plus 15, kind of in line with the master's. And then we increased the PhD ED stipend to $3,000, which was previously $2,500. And we removed the prohibition of step movement with channel advancement. So in the past, if you moved to another channel, salary channel, you weren't able to move down. So now you're able to move over and down if you complete, like if you're going from your master's plus 15 to your master's plus 30.
Article 19 is extra duty, and again, it is primarily the changes that we made that address rates of pay for extra duty work. In this area, we increased the extended school year rate from $29 an hour to $36 an hour to put us more in line with the workload that takes place and differentiating that from some of the other extra duty rates. Also, we added language about extra duty contracts. Our school counselors and nurses often have to come into school or report to work prior to the teachers and some of the other staff in order to get schedules done, to make sure immunizations are online, all of those different types of things. And so they will be, moving forward, they will be given extra duty contracts for the number of days that they are required to work and take their per diem rate in order to do that work. With our after-school activities, we've really clarified what is an after-school activity and how that's differentiated from some of the other extra duty activities. Really looking at those are the types of things, staying for a late bus, maybe being on a late field trip, those types of things, and leaving that rate at $29 an hour. There was no increase to that. And then there was a lot of misunderstanding on professional development attendance rates, and so that was something that might be paid differently based on the partner district in which the employee works. And so we worked out, so during the summer, if they attend professional development, they would receive $150 a day for a full day of attendance and $75 a day for a half-day attendance, and we use that 4 hours as our measurement as far as what constitutes a full and a half day.
Article 23 is paid time off. So we had a perfect attendance bonus, but we were trying to figure out a way to make it more lucrative for people because initially it was for the year, then the semester. So the teams came up with something that people can earn perfect attendance quarterly. So it'll be paid by quarter instead of semester. It'll be $250 per quarter. And if the person is able to complete all 4 quarters of perfect attendance, then there's a $500 bonus at the end.
Article 25 is other leave provisions, and we added an entire new section to that, and that section we refer to as critical leave. This is a new concept, but it will allow for up to 5 paid days of leave that have to be approved by the Chief Human Resources Officer or designee, and really designed for, in the case that teacher-level staff experience a catastrophic loss of home or property, or the critical illness or injury of the employee or their immediate family that requires emergency hospitalization beyond 3 days. So really an opportunity for when those very unfortunate, tragic things occur in their life, that they really do have some time in order to sort things out, that they don't have to worry about the time that they may have in their leave bank in order to be absent to address that. So those first up to 5 days in a school year, and then there will be an application and some documentation requirements that the district will use to track that. And then moving into the salary agreement. So we did a 2-year salary agreement as well. So for next school year, all teachers will receive, all teacher-level staff will receive step movement. We did make an adjustment and increase on all the steps on the salary schedule. So not only is there an increase on the steps, but there is step movement. That's a total cost of $8,149,994 for the increase in salaries, or an overall 4.34% increase to forecasted expenditures. And then in the second year of that salary agreement, we'll have the same. We are doing step movement. We've increased every step on the schedule. That's a slightly lower cost for that year with $7,265,292, or an overall 3.71% increase in the forecasted expenditures for that year. Next slide. So again, it's a 2-year agreement on salary and language. I'll be on later this meeting, beginning on July 1st of this year and lasting through June 30th, 2023. So next slide. Before we move into any questions, though, I would just like to take the opportunity to publicly recognize Monica's service, not only as the SDNEA president and the work that she has done for our teacher-level staff, but also for the many, many years that she spent as a speech-language pathologist with the district, working in the Normandy School District. She's been a real asset to the district. Asset to our district, both as an SLP and then as an advocate for our teachers. And I've enjoyed working with her this past 2 years, and so I'm looking very forward to working with Tammy regardless. I do think that the district is losing a good one here. So happy retirement.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I have to give
for working together,
BSP
putting this together.
And I have to give BSP a plug too. I spent my last 4 years before president as SLP and BSP.
Okay.
Right, well, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your hard work in putting that together, especially on the heels of such a tough school year, especially come to this rewarding agreement.
And I'll have to say, the two teams worked very well together. And we listened to everybody and had really purposeful and meaningful discussions.
Thank you.
The last presentation before we vote is on the calendar. You did previously approve the calendar, however, with negotiations, as you could see with the teachers, there was from 192 down to 190, and so there's an adjustment with the calendars, and Wendy will walk you through that.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Keenan. Good evening, Dr. Cuneo, Vice President Potroff, Board of Directors. I'm Wendy Pendergrass, Chief Academic Officer, and I'm back again to talk about school calendars. Next slide. So nothing really has changed as we had reviewed at the last meeting. We have certain policies for our board calendar. We have a district calendar for our schools, and we have a district calendar for our course program. In order to have credits issued for our students, a school must have 1,044 hours, a minimum of 36 weather makeup days for possible periods of inclement weather. We no longer have to do the minimum amount of school days. All of that has changed the same. Next slide. We cannot open earlier than the 14th. It was very easy for us to look at those 2 days as they were bargained. For Article 13, we backed out the professional development days. We had so many at the first of the year to get us to that 14th, or not starting before the 14 days prior to the September date. We also have approved method of instruction for the hours that are logged for emergency closure. So that has also stayed, our 6 days have stayed in the calendar. Next slide. So we proposed to you in the last calendar 192 days. We are now asking you to reapprove the same calendars for 21, 22, 22, 23, and 23 and 24 for calendars of 190 days to match Article 13. Calendar? Any questions?
Just one a comment, one a quick question. I hope we never have to use contagious disease again.
Absolutely.
But, my question on this is, do you think there'll ever come a time when all schools will have the same calendar, at least in St. Louis County?
I think they are more in line, Dr. Cuneo, now than they have ever been with the mandate that all of us have to start 14 days prior. But that's very difficult for us to align with 22 calendar.
I mean, no, it would just seem it would be so much easier, especially for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to see a day when that would happen.
I know that is conversations that are continually had through the work that Kevin Anders has done with the tech schools and the advisory meetings. That's often a conversation that we have with them several times when we meet because of the difference in the schedules and the high school schedules. It would be great if we could do that. Maybe someday we'll get there.
Thank you.
So as a superintendent group, we meet every Wednesday, and this is something that we've been discussing. But we still have some uniquenesses that within each one of the partner districts. And so, like Ms. Pendergrass said, we are much closer than we've ever been. But I don't think there's going to be a universal calendar that will apply to all of the 22 districts. There's too many nuances, but I think the best we can do is we try to look at what everybody else is proposing, and we can kind of figure out how we're going to try to match it with it. Okay.
Special education, so the joint resolution. Move to accept this. All in favor? Curtis, I didn't hear you. Are you a go on this one? Good, thank you. You can just stick up your thumb. That would be great. Thank you. SDNEA joint resolution. Someone move to accept. Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. SSD school academic calendar with the change. All in favor? Wait, pardon, I need a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Somebody move, would someone move, please, for the SSD court school calendar?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Right or wrong? Someone like to make a motion for closed meeting of the Board of Education on June 22nd, 2021, please.
So moved.
Second.
I need a roll call on this one. Scott.
And Katie.
Okay.
Director Byers?
Yes.
Director Faulkner?
Yes.
Director Moore?
Yes.
Vice President Petrov? Yes. President Studio?
Yes. All right, thank you, that passed. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Before we, thank you, everybody, before we start our next meeting, people like to take a 5-minute break, then we can go into closed session.
We're gonna go
Wait,
in,
I'm sorry,
we're gonna go into the work study.
we have to go into a worst.
Aye.
Yes. Yes. Um,
Meredith,
and,
motion,
and
and Katie
Katie,
seconded.
all right, now for the work study.
Yeah.
All right, this has a call to order and pledge allegiance.
No.
All right, call to order, please.
Director Esmer? Director Byers? Director Faulkner?
He's here.
Here.
Director Hudson?
Thank you.
Director Moore?
Yes.
Vice President Petrov? Here. President Studio?
Here. All right, purchase of service overview, please.
All right, this is going to present our purchase of service. For our new board members, we're gonna kind of go into what purchase of services are and the numbers reporting. This is gonna be coming forward in the June 22nd board meeting, so this will give you a little information prior to approval of contracts that will be coming forward on June 22nd.
Thank you, Dr. Keenan. President Cuneo, Vice President Foskoff, Board of Directors, and Wendy Pendergrass, Executive, not executive anymore, Chief Academic Officer of Schools and Programs. I'm going to present to you tonight a little bit overview of our purchase of service. Sitting in front of you, I did put the schedules for your preview as we go through. So I wanted to start with what it looks like on the placement continuum of purchase of service. So when you think of students and IEP teams that are sitting down to discuss how special education services are going to be implemented, we have the continuum of service. So if a student is receiving services inside regular education 80% of the time, inside regular education 40 to 79% of the time, inside regular education less than 40% of the time, we have our public separate day schools, private separate day schools, and homebound. When we talk about our purchase of service, we're talking about this placement here, which is our private separate day school facility. When we look at an IEP team, this is an IEP team decision when we're looking at purchase of service or we're looking at the continuum of services. So as an IEP team, when they determine that purchase of service might be an option, there's an intake packet that we, along with the IEP data to support, meeting notes, what teams have done prior to help support the student is given to our purchase of service coordinator. We then pass that on with permissions for us to submit it to our agencies that I'll talk to you about a little bit later. Secretaries then enter. All of our agencies have the right to accept students based on profiles, based on need. or they can say that they're not interested at this time, or it's not appropriate for the student to attend their agency at that time, so then we find a different agency. Secretaries then would do the entrance into the programs. Of course, we have multiple systems, SIS. We make sure that they're in our database, so all of our students that are in our purchase of service do assessments. So we have an assessment package. We provide transportation. We get IEPs updated and current, and then of course we start with the agency. The purchase of service coordinator and the teacher involved in the program also supports and goes out to see the students. They do intake with the students. We meet continually with the teachers. We do observations. So we try to make sure we continually stay in contact with our students. When we think of our agency selection, each of our children that come into our district are very unique. So are our agencies. We want to look at our guides for students. So we want to consider geographic location. Since we support students all over St. Louis County, we want to make sure that we are considerate as to what schools or what purchase of service agencies would be close for the students. In some cases, it works out well. The specialized program, as you see in later slides, some of our agencies really do have a niche, if you say, or have a talent for working with certain disabilities, so we want to consider that. Staff to student ratio for students in need of therapy support and therapy services. The ages that the agencies are approved by, and of course the most important is those therapeutic needs. So when we look at students going to purchase of service, it's because the student needs more therapy at that time than what can be utilized in our either public separate, which is our schools, or in the general education building. Slide. So our current agencies are Giant Steps, Great Circle, Center for Autism, ECH, or Every Child's Hope, Logos, and Marygrove. I'm excited to say, next slide, that this year we did an RFQ with the work of Dr. Hogg's department and approached other agencies in the area, and we are going to be asking for you to approve a contract for Emerson Academy, which is ran by Annie DeLone Children and Family Services, and also we will partner. We're very excited about the LEAD School. So I'll talk to you a little bit more about those new agencies. Next slide. Our agency overview kind of describes our agencies and their uniqueness. For our students at Giant Steps, we currently have 4 students at Giant Steps. They are located in Maplewood, Missouri. All of the students that enter into that program have a one-on-one pair of support. They have music therapy. They do not have any type of secured or locked units or classrooms. Their primary disability that they feel comfortable and do a nice job with are students with autism and emotional disturbance. They support students with the ages of 3 through 21. The weekly therapy average is 120 minutes weekly, with 60 minutes of that being individual, 60 minutes of that being group. And please know that these therapies are average. It is all based on what we send them in the IEP, so it is very individualized. For Center for Autism, we currently have 6 students. They're located in St. Peters, Missouri. They're one-to-one paras. We have 3 students that are currently at Center for Autism with 2-to-1 para support. They have no special therapists, secured units. They have a safe room that has magnetic locking doors. They specialize with students with autism, MU or multiply, individuals with disabilities, intellectual disabilities, and other health impairments. They support ages of students 6 through 21, and they do a minimum of 30 minutes per day of support for the students. For Great Circle, that is located in Webster Grove, they have a 2 to 10 student to staff ratio. They do provide support rooms. They have a little bit more variety of students they support with disabilities, emotional disturbance, multiple handicaps, intellectual disabilities, other health impaired, speech and language, and autism. They support students 5 through 21. Weekly average therapy looks 190 minutes weekly. Typically that looks like 3 or 4 45-minute sessions or group sessions, depending on what the individual need is or the supports that the students need and how they interact with each other in a group. For Marygrove, that is located in Florissant, Missouri, it's a 1 to 6 student ratio. They have 6 individual therapists and 1 lead therapist. They do have a specialty area. They do often help support students that have experienced sexual trauma or need some type of therapy with that, so they do have a specialty that we can utilize them for. They support students, again, with autism, emotional disturbance, other health impairment, and speech and language. Ages supported are 6 through 21, and they also do a group mix of both individual and group counseling, 120 minutes a week. Next slide. For Every Child Hope, that's in Maplewood, which a misprint, I'm sorry, that's in St. Charles area, St. Charles Rock Road area. I don't, that's Maplewood right there, maybe. 2 to 10 staff ratio. It has 1 to 14 therapists per student. They do have more therapists. They have locked and secured classrooms. Their school doors are actually for safety of the students locked. They support students with emotional disturbance, ID, other health impairment, speech and language, and specific learning disabilities. They have the older elementary, so they start about 7 and go to 21. And they, too, also do a mix of individual and group therapy for 120 minutes a week. We have Logos, which is the last of our current agencies that we had partnered with. They're located in Olivet. Their student staff ratio is 1 to 6. Their therapist student staff ratio is 1 to 15. They also have secured classrooms. They support students with autism, multiple handicap, individual ID, and other health impairment. Age supported 6 through 21. And again, they do group therapy. The uniqueness about Logos is their therapists are truly on call almost 24 hours a day. That's a unique part of their program. Although we do 150 minutes, they do 50 minutes of individual and often a lot of group. Those therapists really do work individual with those students, where I introduced it. The exciting part is Emerson Academy and the lead school. Emerson Academy, which is ran by Annie Malone, is located in St. Louis, Missouri, off 70 in Vanderbilt area, so it's right inside the St. Louis city border. They will be moving closer to the county. They have a couple of sites that they're looking at, but that will be in the next year or so. They have 2 to 12 or less. They're very excited about partnering with us. They have 1 to 20 therapists, and when we did our site visit and had our sit-down conversation about the uniqueness in what they could provide, they would be willing to provide more therapists as students would grow, as we would provide support to them. We have worked with several of the teaching staff that is at Annie Malone in the past. There are current, our retired special school district employees. So it was nice to see some old familiar faces. They do have support rooms in zones of regulation. Very interesting in their approach on how they de-escalate students in the different rooms and the different colors that they do to provide support for students. They also support students with emotional disturbance, intellectual disabilities, other health impairments, and students with autism. They look at 5 to 21, and they are starting out with 120 minutes, but again, they would individualize what a student needs, both individual and group.
Do you mind, on Emerson and the late school, we're pretty familiar with the other ones, we've had them for a long time. You've seen Emerson Academy?
Yes, sir.
Tell us about it.
So like I said, it's located on 70 in Vanderbilt. It is a old school building, one of the old St. Louis buildings. It sits next to a church. It is very, if you imagine walking into New Owner, it is set up like New Owner with the gym in the center. They have classes and offices all the way around the outside of it. They have supports of students walking in the door, a check-in and check-out system. If they need extra support, those rooms are available right at the front and then throughout. There's a cafeteria. Each staff and classroom comes with at least 1 minimum teacher and paraprofessional or some type of therapeutic support in there. And the counselor and the principal and the lead worker rotate in and out of the classroom. Right now, there's about 30 students that are there. They want to start off with about 15. They would be ready. Yeah, they said that they would like to grow their program. We're excited about that.
Thank you. It's just that, and if you wouldn't mind on the late school,
Absolutely.
you also did the same thing.
The lead school is located in Cool Springs Road, St. Charles area, they will be moving in the next year off, ironically enough, really close to Center for Autism. So they're really moving closer to the St. Louis County, the Bridge area. It is right now a office building that was converted into a school. It's two-level, it's its own building. You have a lower floor for the younger grades, and you have an upper floor for the high schoolers. There's a common community area where that has a lunch and cafeteria type atmosphere where they have classes, where they have home economics. They also, too, have a process where they drop the kids off in the morning, they come through, everyone enters one direction and exits through the one direction. They have multiple classrooms. They, too, have zones of regulation and really benefit on mindfulness. So there are multiple areas on each floor where students can either request to take breaks or they step through the process. So there's different rooms that they would go to if they're experiencing different emotions. They are too extremely excited. We had a student, their therapist is really 4-to-1, so they have some intensive therapy. I can say when I get the feel, it's very welcoming, very relaxing, a typical middle school, high school type environment, smiles on everyone's face. It felt good entering that program. So we're excited about that as well.
Thank you.
They also, what we liked about the lead school, both Jen Grigsby, who is the coordinator, Purchase of Service coordinator, and myself, we got to witness some of their therapy, their drum therapy, their art therapy, and play. It was kind of neat. You don't necessarily see that on a regular basis, but we did get to see that. So we're really excited with their partnership. They are looking at, since we approached them, we noticed that they did not support children with other health impairment, and some of our students that also need purchase of service type environments often carry a diagnosis of other health impairment. So they are doing the applications with the state to also support students with other health impairments. Next slide. So in all of our contracts this year, because of what we've witnessed and what we have learned, we wanted to update the language. So we put in all of our contracts that in the event that we would have some type of closure, whether it's related to COVID or any other medical emergency, that because of what we learned and the partnerships that we've had, and we've met with our agencies multiple times, that each agency would have an alternative method of instruction during any type of extended closure. So what does that look like? That looks like virtual learning, both synchronous and asynchronous, instruction during normal school hours. So the expectations is they would operate their school day like any other normal, but it would be in a virtual setting. And all of that must be in order and documented in order for them to be reimbursed. And we learned through our school closing, we all learned from each other. Ms. Grigsby met with our purchase of service agencies multiple times throughout the year. They shared their types of approaches to virtual learning, what we were doing in the school, and we really feel like we do have some good programs that are going to be moving forward in case we ever have to have some type of virtual learning again. Next slide, please. So what we will continue to do with our agencies is we quarterly have agency director meetings. That was a little unique to all of our agencies. You would think that that would be difficult meetings to have considering they're all competing with special school districts to get our supports and our students, but they really like the chance to collaborate and learn from each other and do site visits. So that really is something that has turned out quite nice. Our assessment coordinator meets continually with our SSD curriculum coordinator, so we provide support because it's the expectation for our students when they go to our purchase of service agencies that they meet the assessment guidelines, both state and district level. So we will send our assessment people in to help support and monitor that progress. We continue to consult with agencies, directors as needed. Jen and Mary are often out in the buildings as visiting has relaxed and people are allowed into the building. We're doing a lot more site visits. And then most of all, we share resources and often sometimes training we learn. So that's really exciting. Next slide. We use an evaluation and rubrics. So special school district has several rubrics and indicators. So we share and evaluate each agency with our social, emotional, and behavior quality indicators. They rate themselves, and then we use that as a tool to have conversations with them as we go through the year. We also use the autism quality indicators. We look at the universal support checklist, so the same walkthrough tools that we would use in our classrooms in our SSD schools, we would also use in some of the classrooms in our purchase of service site. Of course, all of our agencies are instructed to follow district board policy and procedure, and they also follow our assessment plan. So if we ask them to do that, we want to make sure that they have enough support so our students have access to that in our training. Next one. We will continue to do frequent site visits, meet with individual students as needed, meet with our families. We want to observe our students so we not only understand what they're doing data-wise, but see them in action. We will continue to do walkthroughs and classroom visits as restrictions allow us to do that, and we will continue with our meeting with our agency directors and our therapists to problem solve certain issues as they arise. Any additional questions, please?
I have a couple. You mentioned, when we were going through school, we started with the first two of how many students we had there. We had assessment center of autism. Can you implement, we had a grade circle, Marysville?
Yes, we have a total right now of 83 students that are receiving services with purchase of service. We've had 116 that we've processed, meaning either have came into or have exited our purchase of service program. We have currently 4 students at Giant Steps, 31 students at Great Circle. Of that, 3 of them should be graduating. Center for Autism, we have 6. Every Child's Hope, we have 13. We have no graduates at ECH. We had 27 students at Logos with 5 graduates, and we have 2 students at Marygrove.
And the other question I had, for LEAD, one of the disabilities was TBI.
TBI?
Oh,
And only one,
Yeah.
I noticed only one said that they would welcome students with that.
Yes, traumatic brain injury. They, as they shared with us in our meeting, they had a student it came to them and unfortunately also had a traumatic brain injury, so they supported that student through the traumatic brain injury as well.
I have a couple of questions of somebody else.
What?
Go right ahead.
I just wanted to know, 2 newer schools, Emerson and the lead school, would students then be able to matriculate into their programs for the upcoming school year?
So that's a great question. Thank you. Yes. So what we're looking at, we are looking at certain profiles of students since we're able to partner with the different agencies. So we have about 7 students that for different reasons we feel have plateaued in a current location, and we want to make sure that they have an opportunity to experience these other programs. So we are in the process of, if the board approves, that we would be looking at possibly sending them to, sending their profile to these locations and start with those students there.
That's great. I think you answered my second question, which is, would we be transitioning current students over to these new schools, or would it be students who are coming into our system?
Yes, unfortunately, right now, we have about 11 students that are sitting on a waiting list, due to the numbers of the therapies that we need. So some of those places will help us support those 11 students, and then the other one some of them are sitting on waiting lists, like for Center for Autism. They're hoping to get staff hired over the summer, so they can then support those students.
I have a couple questions. Academic curriculum. Years past, we had difficulties with that, and we instituted a program to take a look at the academic curriculum for each of these places. Because some were not offering any, or let's just say it was woefully lacking. Maybe that's a nice way of putting it. Are we still checking their academic curriculum and seeing what is being done?
I can absolutely verify that the work that I have had the experience to do with Dr. Bolton and myself and Matt Glazer, who is the current instructional person for the schools, are constantly training and improving the academic approaches and materials and knowledge of the staff that are sitting in all of our buildings. That has been a focus with our partnerships and a focus for some of those meetings, those quarterly meetings, that we help support guide them along, and we learn from each other about the unique interventions that are out there. Absolutely.
We had a big difficulty with Giants that years ago. Have they improved?
Yes, yes. I can say that with our students, Danny is the director over. She has done a very nice job the last couple of years supporting our students and really pushing them to have a lot more instructional time and phase out the therapy piece.
I had another question on Giant Steps. Was that, they stated they only gave 30 minutes of therapy a day, but they're one-on-one.
Average. That would be an average of based on what they record in an IEP.
But they're one-on-one.
Yes,
There.
yes.
So they're not using ABA or anything else during any of that time? I mean, it just seemed like, 30 minutes seemed like an extremely low number when I'm seeing a one-on-one.
Yes, yes. So they have multiple other interventions that they use at Giant Steps. They do mostly support students one-on-one, so their instruction looks a little different. I can say that when Ms. Grigsby was there 2 weeks ago, I believe, that she actually sat there and watched the therapist. So there are a variety of people that come in and work with the students, but the physical therapist be sitting one-on-one and getting different activities one after another. So doing the prompts, doing the schedules, the visual schedules, and when the student was done, they were moving on to the next activity. So.
One last question. This is, one of the measures that we had before was successful movement back to a less restrictive environment. In other words, one of our facilities.
Yeah.
At least a homeschool or possibly one of our SSD schools. Is this still a measure for success, or is this still a measure?
I think it's something that we're going to relook at again, based on the uniqueness of the year. Some of the students were very stagnant this year. Yes, but that is something that we're going to continue to monitor. Of course, hoping that the end-all be-all will be back to the least restrictive environment, or back in our SSD buildings, and then remotely back into the least restrictive environment, or graduated. So I could say that we had more luck with students graduating this year and being supported through graduation than typically changing the environment. We have had a few that have moved back to a least restrictive environment, but that is always our focus.
One of my concerns with POSs is I clearly think they serve a need that we have. We had the last tax agreements. Big issues was that we were going to increase the services at our facilities so that we could reduce the number of students that we were sending out to POSs. And each year I see the decline, or the leveling off, but it was nowhere near what it was 10 years ago. I still think we need, as a measure of success, movement. In other words, what was happening before is once an individual got into a POS, they stayed at a POS till they're 21. And that seems not beneficial to the student.
Depending on the student and the student's need, it is always the focus. And we've had conversations with all of our directors, and they are I would say currently they are in a much better place the last couple of years. Having those conversations, we've had our effective practice specialists of transition working with several other agencies to transition them back to their home schools, because of course some of our students are going on to college. The purchase of service is not offered in college, if you would, that amount of therapy and support. So how do we get students into a least restrictive environment? And that's something that we will continue to monitor.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next presentation tonight is, going to be updating, the development committee and the professional development plan and budget. And Ms. Tina Bakshay, who's the director of teaching and accountability, will also be joining them. Awesome.
The President, Vice President Patrick, Dr. King, Board of Directors. My name is Molly Bolton. I am the Executive Director of Teaching, Learning, and Accountability. With me tonight, I have Tina Max, who is the Director of Professional Learning. So the purpose of this presentation is to inform you of the PDC committee, or the Professional Development Committee plan from the previous year and reporting out on the actions of those plans, and then the plan and the budget for the following school year. Just to give you a little background on why this was brought to the board, as DESE requires, the responsibility of the board is to approve the district's professional development plan and ensure the implementation of the plans that meet both students as well as our adult learning needs, and ensure that new teachers receive that ongoing high-quality beginning teacher assistant program and mentoring program that is aligned to state standards and guidelines. So just to give you a little bit of background on what the Professional Development Committee is. Basically, this is a committee that works in partnership with our building leaders, so our administrators, principals, and the local school boards, and they utilize the standards for professional learning, the Learning Forward standards, to guide the efforts of individuals and teams and schools in setting policy, organizing, providing, facilitating, managing, participating in, monitoring, and measuring. That's a lot of stuff that they're doing there. Professional learning to increase that educational effectiveness. And we should see that as evidenced by our educator evaluation system, as well as improving the results for student learning. Our committee members are selected by peers in each of the partner districts, as well as our low internet programs, vocational skills programs, and SSD schools, our technical schools, and our early childhood special education. See that all of our educators are represented. There's a new regulation that was put into effect the 1920 school year that PDC funds, or the Professional Development Committee funds, can only be accessed and used for certified teachers in teaching positions. In the past, we were able to use these funds for speech language pathologists and other certified staff, but now there is a stipulation from DESE that it can only be used for slide, please. So where the funds come from, so DESE requires each school district to allocate 1% of its revenue from that foundational program, exclusive of the categorical add-ons, to the PDC Committee for Professional Development. Of those monies allocated, 75% have to be spent in the same physical year. And the report is available for the state review as an artifact on how those funds were dispersed. We do turn that in every month. Next slide. One caveat we have to this, we will be providing you with the student data at a little bit later. Oops, sorry, can you go back? A little bit later date. We have just, of course, with the school year ending, completed all the assessments. We are in the process of analyzing those and compiling them into a finalized report. So that summary will be completed, and then we will provide it for you at the time of completion through the Friday process. Next one. I'm going to turn it over to Tina Makshay to talk to you guys a little bit about the goals from this year and how they were accomplished.
Good evening, President Cuneo, Vice President Petroff, Board Director Dr. Keenan, Tina Makshay, Director of Professional Learning. And as Dr. Bolton indicated, wanted to brief you tonight on the expenditures, the activities that were funded through the PDC for the current year, the actual costs associated with each of those activities, and then some general information that, again, will contribute to then what we'll be sharing as positive outcomes for students in these areas. So this first goal relates to improving performance in the area of literacy, numeracy, and behavior. Specifically on this slide are those expenses that were funded in the area of literacy. And so first we have our Letters Professional Learning, which is our foundational course, if you will, that really helps teachers be able to provide sound Tier 1 instruction. And that the cost associated with that professional learning activity is $42,687.49. We have a total of 37 teachers participate in this pilot year. That's out of a possibility of a group size of 40. And then you can see impressions of the session. So 92% rated the professional learning positively as a positive experience, and that and also 92% indicated that the learning increased their knowledge. And just as a note, both letters and then we'll talk about numeracy. In the numbers program, there is an evaluation that is also being completed, again, to just evaluate the effectiveness of the program. So we know we are investing, and this was our first year in those trainings. So more data to come there. Also in the area of literacy, another area that we funded was SIP, or the Systematic Instruction and Reading Awareness on Sight Words. Our expenses for that training were $3,475. We had 40 teachers participate in that professional learning, and 100% additional data is 100% of our participants felt that it was a practical training, of which then they went on to implement at a 94% fidelity of implementation. So there's additional data there. In the area of Wilson, our expenditures there were $29,410, and we have 13 teachers who are participating in that professional learning, and then you see a note that they will complete their practicum this fall in November. We purchased materials, some text for the Science of Teaching Reading course, and that amounted to $327 for this school year. Our SIM, or Strategic Instruction Model Training materials, were $2,481, and then 83% of our participants rated that as above average or outstanding. We also funded conferences for the Strategic Instruction Model in South by Southwest for that amount of $2,564, and the purpose in those areas was making certification and also to support our professional developers in the related research in these areas. At the expense of $92,249 is our FastBridge subscription, so our student licenses for screening and progress monitoring for math and reading.
Do we have to pay FastBridge every year for the license?
Correct. So I wanted to also address, Dr. Muller, you submitted a question in regards to participation in the letters training and numbers as well, and a curiosity about where participants were kind of coming from. And so I believe you have a table provided for that, with that information. And there's a supplement to that area as well. So that.
And I did explain to Director Muller that the reason the numbers were like 37 and we cap it at that 40. We want to make sure that we're doing with fidelity. As you said, they're going to be doing an evaluation to see how it's doing. So I explained it as it's a very intensive program. So it's like for the teachers who are on the teaching on the gen ed side, like IB, AP, they go through a specialized program, very intensive. This is a similar thing for our teachers in special education. It's more of a tier 2, tier 3 support, and it's extremely intensive, and we want to make sure that when they go through it, that they're really well versed in it, but there's a lot of not only just attendance, but there's a lot of coaching and support that goes beyond just professional development.
So the letters training is a 6-day training, and we also had 2 additional days for administrators to be trained as well. And then numbers is actually a 10-day training for our teachers, and they had 1 day for administrators as well.
I think a unique facet worth mentioning too is it is available and it's part of our onboarding process for new teachers. So teachers in their 3rd year might select either letters or numbers as their fourth professional learning as well. Teachers participating certainly then feel that value. Get all these questions.
Yeah, I have another question, but I can wait till the end.
So in the area of numeracy, again, that numbers professional learning, so kind of the flip side of the companion to letters is numbers, and so that expense was $48,400.62. And again, we had 36 participants And you can see the favorable impression of the training and that it is increasing our staff's knowledge and skills in that area. And again, an evaluation is what's to come. Focus Math Materials had a $4,000 expense this year. We provided that training both synchronously and asynchronously. Had 7 participants and 100% agreement that it increased their knowledge and skills in that area. Number roll, $3,057.70 were for materials for that program. 15 participants and 100% indicated for professional learning. Professional learning is for knowledge and understanding. Corrective math, we did not end up needing to purchase materials for this year, but just wanted to make you aware that we did anticipate, we thought we would, and we did have 21 participants this year, but we were able to use resources from the previous year.
Hey, Tina, I have a question. Did you have, lower attendance because of COVID and?
So certainly overall, our enrollment in professional learning was lower. What we noticed through tracking was, our kits, if you will, for our on-demand learning. So that seems to be what folks turn to more regularly than multi-course days. What we know is teachers found it hard to step away from instruction, virtual instruction, and really create that time and space to engage in learning, engage in the follow-up support that we know is needed. Overall, number of our third area within Goal 1 is the area of behavior, and our expenses towards our nonviolent crisis and intervention program are listed. And so you see presenter fees totaling $27,600, and that is where we contract with crisis prevention and intervention to do training of our instructors. And so we had advanced certification for a number of our instructors this year. For books, materials, and fees, they total $61,876 for texts and those resources for teacher-level staff, and we trained 1,181 teachers. We also are required to pay membership fees for each of our instructors, and that totals $1,350 for 30 weeks. Other costs in the area of behavior were conference registrations, and those totaled $5,918, and those were various conferences, again, funded through our PDC members out in the partner districts to help support some social emotional learning. Next slide. Goal 2 is around our requirement and mandate to provide a high-quality teacher induction program and mentoring program. And so costs associated for the fiscal year 21 were around our 3-day new teacher orientation program for $4,658.57. And then a favorable rate of 97% of our participants felt that the orientation experience increased their knowledge and skills. We purchased materials for continuous improvement, and that would be our continuous classroom improvement course and our student partnership course, and those total $13,230.25, and again, favorable ratings for increasing knowledge of our teachers. We also had 3 facilitators who presented outside of their contract time, and so $870 extra duty paid stipends associated with those presentations. And then, as we predicted, we do have school-level mentors, 160 re-mentors that each earn $450 per their assignment, and that totals $68,450. And so, in total, for the Goal 2 in our induction program, with $87,208.82. Our last goal area is around our PDC and having a functioning professional development committee. And so each member is charged with facilitating activities and securing funds within their area, as well as attending 3 required meetings, maintaining a log, and consistent communication with stakeholders in their area. And this year, we had 4 leadership team members, and they each received a stipend of $300, totaling $1,200, and 22 PDC members, each receiving $150 stipend for a total of $3,300. And again, in total, then, $4,500 supported our professional development committee members. So then, as we think about going forward to the next school year, here are our proposed goals and activities and budget associated with those goals. Again, keeping consistent with our student performance goals in the areas of literacy, numeracy, and behavior, you see proposed associated activities in those areas for letters, Wilson, strategic instruction models, then our fast first subscriptions, numbers, focused math, effective math number world, NCI, and supporting our career technical education teachers and their required SEEA training and other conference requests in these areas. Our proposed budget for that is $378,316. Our new hire induction program that will begin at this year's new teacher orientation in July, as well as related onboarding fees for 3 years. The projected costs are $118,343, and that will cover our materials for continuous classroom improvement, our summer events, and school-level mentors. And lastly, again, for our PDC to support PDC activities of our PDC members, the anticipated cost would be $6,500, and then our projected total would be $503,000. A little more than $503,000. Bigger numbers than I'm used to dealing with. So I wanted to circle back to any questions that you might have.
Sure, yeah, thank you for the information.
Sure.
I was thinking, I'm curious about the literacy and the numeracy strategies. There's quite a range in costs for the different strategies and with different direct audience or direct audiences, but you know, the ultimate audience is the students. So I'm just curious if you have a plan for using student data to discern which of these is most effective and best bang for the buck or whatever. How do you intend to do that?
Each of our programs does have a plan that is in place that tracks how teachers are progressing over time and implementing with fidelity, as well as then how students progress. And so we monitor that annually. The ones that you notice now on this proposed plan that are the most costly are because we have outside presenters coming in to do that training as required by them. And so that's really then where we have these program evaluations in place to help us measure, are we getting the most bang for our buck? Are we seeing those changes in students? So that then we can make that determination of we're on the right path, stay the course, or we need to course correct. And so we believe as we are looking at each of these evaluations annually, we're making those decisions on where are we getting the best student outcomes.
I have a couple questions for somebody else. Well, go right ahead.
Okay. I was just wondering, the proposed budget for all 3 of these sections is much higher than last year, because had the much fewer people participating last year, and we're anticipating more people next year, or because the companies themselves have upped their prices, like what might a huge increase between $319,000 and $70,000, for example, for literacy.
I think overall we take that number of what we estimate are going to be our 1% funds, and then try to work backwards to how can we best utilize those monies. And so when we are anticipating that we'll be in that $500,000 range, we'll then look at all of the professional learning that is eligible to be charged against those 1% funds. And so that's a little bit about how we budget those. We still, while we did not charge them to PDC this year, many of these professional learnings still occurred We just use other, our other resources to provide them.
Next, in this budget, they're all together.
Within this budget, because we feel we are around that $500,000 range in using our 1% fund.
I had a couple of questions.
I had a question.
We're going to have 13. Curtis, I'm sorry, go right ahead.
And maybe I just missed it through the communications in the computer, but I noticed that in Goal 1 and Goal 2, it talked about a 20% increase by June of 21. So this is June of 21, and so I was wondering if I had missed something that was stating in reference to that 20% measurement that it talked about in Goals 1 and 2. So if I didn't miss that, then how did we come to those, or how did you come to those 20% figures of improvement?
So when we established the goals in the fall, that is our aim, is the 20% increase, and those are still the final reports that Dr. Bolton spoke to earlier that we are still finalizing.
Okay, so that 20% is not an actual at this point.
We don't have all the information right now because the student tests haven't come back. So we'll know that at the end of June, July. Yeah, that data comes. Yeah. Because school just did last.
Because you said specifically by June of 21, so this is that 21, yeah.
At the end of June, 21.
Dr. Cooney, you had a question about Wilson?
Yeah, I had a couple. On Wilson training, we're going to have 13 teachers. How many total do we get?
We have 13 teachers going through this year.
Okay.
We will start another cohort of teachers. We try to do at least 20 a year.
Good.
This year we had several teachers decline their spots just because of the virtual instruction. Wilson is not, it's harder to do virtually because we believe in the multisensory approach. So we typically try to take 20 through a year.
It's just that I remember a settlement that we had because the individual was demanding a Wilson, and I was just wondering how many of them went through. About how many teachers do you think we have that are Wilson certified?
That are certified or trained?
Trained.
Trained. I can get you that specific number. You know, we keep track of who is trained, who is
if you can just.
I can do it in your Friday packet.
No problem. Other thing that I noticed is we're not training on Word, are we?
On Word?
Wasn't that the last one?
No,
What was it called?
no.
Now. That's it. Now. I didn't see now.
Yeah, now does not. We would have to bring in. They require us to bring in trainers and also fidelity checks. Like, they will not let us do it as a district.
That's fine. And then.
And the research behind it is not really strong.
Yeah, that's what we had heard last time. How much time do you think you spend, the individual spend on the committee, on the professional development committee? How many times did you all meet?
We met 3 times this year, virtually.
And roughly, how much work do you have to do on the outside besides the meeting?
It really depends upon how many requests are made from teachers in that area. And so some districts have, you know, a few requests and some have none. And then the communication that they send to try and really actively support and advertise professional learning, again, is, you know.
What would you figure?
My sense is around 15 hours a year.
All I can say it was for $300 on a stipend. This was one of the best deals in town for the district. This stipend clearly was not worth the effort that was being put out. You clearly were putting in much more time.
Again, I think that is directly related to, as we really seek that membership, that will really go out and advertise and support, and in years really leverage kind of that teacher needs assessment, and what do teachers need? They're that direct linkage and voice, and that's really what we want.
I think our professional development is as good as, if not better, than anywhere else in the state. I think we're doing an excellent job of mentoring our new teachers.
We feel it's very important for our staff to have that added benefit because we are such a specialized district. And absolutely, you know, that's what we are wanting to make sure that we're providing for our district, our staff. It's very unique, and you're correct. I haven't seen this level of support and opportunities for professional development in a school district before. Because usually districts just don't have the support or the funding, or if you're a teacher, like when I was a teacher, I would have to go and say, oh, I want to go do this, and I would research it myself. This is sustainable. This is being able to have other people work with you instead of having to be the one teacher that's trying to figure it out on their own. Even though there are multiple districts, bringing them together is that opportunity to kind of broaden and have that external or internal support for our teachers during this process. So our students come to us with multiple needs, and we have to have the professional development and to equip our staff with the different curriculum and really train them. So I think, you know, they've done an amazing job with it.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll be sure to share that feedback with the team. We'll appreciate that, and I want to say we do have a PDC that is active, very invested, and has ideas for continuing to grow as well. And I think that that's something that we should be proud of.
Thank you.
Invested. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now communications.
Last presentation is our communications department update. And
Questions on this?
we have Jennifer Henry, our executive director of communications.
Good evening, board, President Steele, Vice President Hotchkiss, and Dr. Keaton. I'm Jennifer Henry, the executive director of communications, and I'm here to provide you an update on the communication department and our efforts. We are going to go over a quick overview of our communications department, what's new in our department, some things we've accomplished this year, talk a little bit about employee engagement and our communications. This is currently the department's mission. We are focused on informing and engaging our families, staff, community stakeholders about the issues and activities of SSD and to coordinate and facilitate formal district communication. This mission was developed several years ago, and as I just mentioned, we have done a communications audit, so as we do some work going forward, we will be doing some updating to this mission. These are some of the areas that our department is responsible for. So in addition to strategic communication and support communication support, we also are responsible for all of our communication channels and methods. So what's new in communication? We launched a new website this year. In August, the new website for the district and the schools were launched to have a new looking design that's consistent across the platform. We're utilizing the Blackboard platform. It is an upgrade from our previous website, which we were utilizing. This one is responsive, meaning that it resizes based on the platform that you're on, which is very important for mobile viewing. And then it also has an ADA compliance tool built in so that we can make sure that all of our content is ADA compliant and we're able to provide the best user experience possible for any of our visitors. We completed an internal audit of the website this winter and are working on making the updates that were pointed out in that audit.
And we are consistently tracking the traffic and the reach of our website to make sure that we know where our visitors are coming from and the content they're accessing so that we can make sure that we are providing the best navigation and making the best decisions about what type of content and where to have it. And then also just some quick numbers. We have an average of over 100,000 visitors per month. And from August to May 31st, we had over 1.3 million visitors to our website, just to our district website. Next. Social media. So these are the main district social media channels. In addition to the district social media channels, we support the schools and their social media efforts. Our Facebook and Twitter accounts were established in 2012. And they're utilized regularly. LinkedIn was established several years ago, but we revitalized that this year. And then we established a YouTube channel this year. We've seen some growth across our platforms. We are currently sitting at close to 14,000-ish fans, or almost 14,000-ish fans, with a 10% increase from this time last year. Twitter, we had a 12% increase. We still have a lower number of followers in that area. We see most of our parents are still on the Facebook platform. Twitter followers tend to be a younger group, so those are younger parents or adult students. LinkedIn, we are using in our recruitment efforts with HR, and we've seen a 7% increase with them, so we're close to 5,000 followers. Amongst those, we see people who are looking for jobs in education, but also many of our employees follow us on LinkedIn as well. As far as YouTube, we did not have a presence on YouTube, and so that channel was established in November. YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world, and we didn't have a presence on it previously. And now we have over 100 videos posted, and we have over 10,000 video views. We only have about 117 subscribers, but again, we've only been live on there since November. In addition to these social media channels, we implemented a social media management tool in March, which allows us to be more strategic in how we post and schedule our content for social media channels. And our social media is an important aspect of our communications efforts because it allows us to have a greater reach in our community beyond our parents and our staff that are connected in other ways. So we're able to reach our greater audience that way, and we are working on developing a strategy around social media advertising so that we can continue to increase that reach. We worked on establishing some electronic newsletters this year so that we were able to better connect our stakeholders in the region. We have the SSD Connection, which is a staff newsletter that goes out to 6,135 employees. We have the Spotlight Monthly Community e-newsletter that goes out to 27,916 community members and staff members. And then our partner districts implemented monthly newsletters. This year, they started out on a variety of platforms, and we were able to transition them to a unified platform, which is called SMORE. And the important thing about that is that the SMORE platform is electronic, it's ADA accessible, and most importantly, it has a translation function so that we're able to be sure that we are reaching all of our community and not just our English-speaking community. And we are working with our SSD schools to begin a transition to SMORE newsletters towards the new school year. We have also implemented a board brief. So following our board meetings, we have a summary that appears on the board meetings on the website about actions taken at the board meeting. We include that in our electronic newsletters so that we're being more transparent about the actions that are taken by the board. We had a twice-a-month blog that was put out by the superintendent on a variety of topics that were of interest to our parents, and we're working on developing that further for next school year. We implemented Teacher, which is an online flyer system for our SSD schools. that allows us to work with community partners to share information about their services and activities that are of interest to our parents, but also as another channel for us to reach our families regarding information from our schools and activities that might be of interest to them. And then we started utilizing billboards in the community to advertise hard-to-hire positions and for recruitment for our tech schools. One thing that's important about our electronic communication is that research shows that 98% of households have at least one device with internet access, whether it's a cell phone, a tablet, or computer. And I believe that even in our North County region, most prefer to get their information electronically, so making sure that we're best utilizing those channels is important. We are also working on the brand position. As I shared in previous meetings, we've worked with a firm to work on our brand identity and our visual identity. And this is our new brand position that we developed. And it is unique to our district and talks about really what encompasses the SSD. The Special School District of St. Louis County, the largest specialized education provider in the state, equips and empowers students of all learning abilities to excel to their greatest potential. This is realized through an inclusive, collaborative approach, supported by our comprehensive resources and deep expertise, all of which is centered on each student's unique needs. So this statement you will see on multiple materials as we begin to roll out our new brand, but this encompasses our mission, vision, and values that we previously developed with the board. And then this is our samples of our visual identity. Previously, I shared the SSD logo, which you see down in the bottom corner, but here are some of the other materials that we worked on. We have our business cards, a flyer, single flyer, and some letterhead. And then at the next board meeting, you will see a whole new PowerPoint template, which will conform to our new brand identity. We have also been working on employee engagement in partnership with K-12 Insights. We implemented the survey in January and February. The survey was administered to 5,277 employees, and 2,665 responded. They're broken out by teacher or by employee subgroups. So these are the response rates, which are pretty typical and compared to previous years. We did see an increase in our paraprofessionals. While it's not as high as our other areas, it did increase by 7%, which we attribute to a greater access to technology. We've recently provided them with their own devices, and so they are able to have a better access to the survey. One of the key takeaways from the survey is that 64% of teachers, 82% of paraprofessionals, and 70% of other staff were classified as engaged or highly engaged, which is a very positive result considering all of the challenges that we faced over the last 4 years. So the survey identified a couple of key areas for improvement. So they involve district leadership. A lot of it is around culture, career growth and training opportunities as far as professional development needs, and sort of initiatives, feedback and recognition, but more so in the informal feedback and recognition than our district programs. And then they identified key items to maintain engagement as school leadership, and so part of that goes back to that culture piece. So our next steps that we are working on as far as employee engagement is we recently wrapped up employee focus groups. We broke down those subgroups into partner district teachers, SSD teachers, partner district paras, SSD paras, SSD leaders, and then our other operations group. And we went through their specific data to drill down a little bit more and examine the results. So that we are now compiling that information and we bringing that information to the district leadership team. We have a retreat in the coming weeks, and we will be developing action plans based on that data and the survey results. And we will be implementing the action plans for the new school year. So as soon as we complete those action plans, the survey results and those plans will be posted for all of our staff. And then one of the items that was a clear takeaway for me as part of the focus groups is that we needed to have more opportunities for two-way communication and employee engagement than just a survey each year. So we'd like to establish an employee advisory council, and we're still working on the details of what that would look like. But meeting several times throughout the year with various employee groups from across the district, and we'd like to have board recommendations on that as well to make sure that we are providing an employee voice and opportunity for them to share their input on a more regular basis. As I mentioned, we did a communications audit. We worked with an outside organization who specializes in school communications. And these are the 9 essential areas that they examined. So they did a deep dive into the communications efforts that we currently have in place, and then did an interview with the communications department. We received the results recently, and I've been reviewing those. One of the things that the auditors noted is that while the staff have been producing tactical communications across the district, there is not yet an overall strategic communication plan to guide and focus the work. The use of comprehensive strategic communication will pull all the pieces together and increase the effectiveness of the team's work. And so that brings us to our last step. The immediate recommendations they provided were to create that strategic communications plan, which will align with our new district strategic plan, so the timing of that is really great. To create a strong brand identity, one of the things that they were able to ascertain is that our current brand is not strong and that it's not recognizable, and there's a lack of awareness, which we had already heard from our work with Magnetize. So that's already in development. And then to work on an internal engagement model to regularly solicit feedback and input from staff members. And as I just shared, we're working on the Employee Advisory Council, and I suspect that we will have some other strategies come out in our action planning with our employee engagement. One of the things that we'll be doing is launching the new brand identity here in the next few weeks. So you'll begin to see the new logo and various aspects of the work that we've done with Magnetize roll out. The main launch will be for the beginning of the school year when staff arrive. We're currently developing a new communications process. One of the areas that we could be stronger in is making sure that we are better tracking our progress and having stronger project management. So we'll be utilizing the technology service that system, which is JIRA, to make sure that we are keeping track of our projects in a much more efficient manner. As I mentioned, we're going to develop that internal engagement model to make sure that we're working with our staff on a more consistent basis to get their feedback. We'll be developing that strategic plan. We're working with the team over the summer to go over the audit and really develop that into a multi-year plan with clear goals and objectives that are measurable. And then finally, we'll be working on a survey so that we're able to measure the effectiveness. So not just did we meet our goals, but how are others viewing the work that we're doing. What questions can I answer?
Thanks for the couple. First, not a question, but a high praise that the Facebook page is much better. It's much more, never find words, it's communicating a lot more about what's going on in the school.
Much more consistently.
start with probably. Will TeachJar also include SSD's own parent classes that we offer? Okay, that would be.
Yes, we're working with PETA, on making sure that we provide that information through that.
That would be great. When you said that, teachers were engaged, what does engaged mean?
Yes. I don't know what that meant either.
So based on the metrics that K-12 Insight measures, there's a couple of key touchstones, and I can provide that information to you in the Friday memo, that they use to identify as engaged. So I'll send that in the Friday memo.
Okay, that would be great. Yeah. And then when you were saying that you're going to use that, JIRA for,
It's a project management tool, so our technology department and several other departments have started utilizing it for project management and project tracking. One of the areas that I know that we need to have better focus on is making sure that we're tracking the work that's being done more consistently and seeing how long projects take from beginning to end. And I think that some of the tools that they have in JIRA will help us to do that more efficiently.
you mean within the communication?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, for example, if somebody wanted to put out a request in for a video, they would go through that process, and it would come to our department, and then internally in our department, we would plan out that work using that system, and you can assign tasks and that kind of thing. So it'll help us as a project manager. Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess I do have one. Are you familiar with Thought Exchange?
I am.
Okay, just curious.
Yes.
That filled a nice role for us as far as getting feedback from parents and teachers alike, so.
I used them in a previous district around a ballot initiative, and actually in the communications audit, that was one of the recommendations to investigate further to make sure that we're looking at other tools to make sure to engage people. So yeah, that's one of the areas we're looking at.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Concludes our three presentations.
All right, someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Please take 5 minutes and then come back and we'll start the executive session. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.